You think you know yourself. You know your favorite food, your music taste, your trauma, your triggers. But according to Carl Jung, you only know the mask. Jung called it the persona. The version of you that smiles when you're angry, that says I'm fine when you're drowning, that acts strong when you feel abandoned. The persona is the version of you the world accepts. But beneath that mask lies something else, something darker, something you've been avoiding your entire life. The shadow. And Jung believed this. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Think about that. What if your patterns aren't accidents? What if the people you attract, the pain you repeat, the emotional chaos you live in, isn't bad luck? What if it's your shadow running the show? Jung's research into the human psyche revealed something terrifying. Every human being has a split nature. There is the version of you that society approves of. And there is the version of you that you buried. The anger you weren't allowed to show as a child, the jealousy you were told was ugly, the neediness that was called weakness, the ambition that was labeled selfish. So, what did you do? You suppressed it. And whatever you suppress does not disappear. It waits. The shadow is not evil. It is everything about you that you decided was unacceptable. And here's where it gets dangerous. The more you deny your shadow, the more power it gains. Ever notice how you judge certain traits in others? You hate arrogance. You despise manipulation. You can't stand emotional weakness. Jung would say, look closer. Because what triggers you reveals you. Projection. One of Jung's most controversial and powerful ideas. When you see something in someone else that disgusts you, it often exists within you. Buried, rejected, denied. The empath who constantly attracts narcissists. Jung would not call it coincidence. He would call it unconscious attraction. Because the empath rejects their own power. They reject their aggression. They reject their ability to say no. So they meet someone who embodies everything they've suppressed. Dominance, control, self-prioritization. And they call it love. But it's not love. It's psychological completion. The shadow seeks integration, not destruction. Jung believed that true growth, what he called individuation, only happens when you confront your shadow. Not when you pretend to be positive. Not when you repeat affirmations. But when you sit alone and admit the truth about yourself. You are not always kind. You are not always selfless. You are not always the victim. There is rage in you. There is envy in you. There is selfishness in you. And pretending there isn't is what keeps you fragmented. The shadow is powerful energy. When repressed, it becomes self-sabotage. When acknowledged, it becomes strength. That overthinking, shadow fear of abandonment. That people-pleasing, shadow fear of rejection. That obsession with being understood, shadow wound of invisibility. Jung studied myths, religions, dreams, symbols. And he found something universal. Every culture speaks of light and darkness. Heaven and hell, hero and villain, God and devil. Because the human psyche mirrors that duality. You are both. And the moment you try to be only light, you become unconsciously dark. This is why nice people explode one day. This is why calm individuals suddenly break. This is why empaths absorb so much until they become cold. Suppression creates eruption. Integration creates balance. Jung believed dreams were messages from the unconscious. When you dream of being chased, it may be your shadow demanding attention. When you dream of someone from your past, it may represent a part of you that was abandoned. Your unconscious speaks in symbols, and most people ignore it. They distract themselves. Phones, noise, relationships, validation. But Jung isolated himself for years. He confronted his own darkness in what he called his confrontation with the unconscious. He wrote about visions, dark figures, inner chaos, and instead of running from it, he studied it, because he understood something most people don't. You cannot heal what you refuse to face. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your unfinished self. And here's the part most motivational channels won't tell you. Your shadow holds your power. The anger you suppress, that's boundary energy. The selfishness you deny, that's self-preservation. The ambition you hide, that's leadership. The darkness you fear, that's depth. But if you refuse to integrate it, it leaks out sideways. Passive aggression, jealousy, resentment, victim mentality, emotional dependency. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Read that again. Not by imagining light, but by making darkness conscious. That means sitting with your uncomfortable thoughts, admitting your toxic patterns, seeing how you manipulate for validation, recognizing how you play small to feel safe. This is shadow work, and it is brutal, because it removes the illusion that you are purely good. But it also removes the illusion that you are purely broken. You are layered, complex, capable of destruction and creation. The problem is not that you have darkness. The problem is that you are unconscious of it. Jung believed that the most dangerous person in the world is not the one who knows they are flawed. It is the one who believes they are morally superior. Because whatever they deny in themselves, they will attack in others. This is why the world projects so much. Online outrage, cancel culture, moral grandstanding. It's collective shadow projection. The war outside mirrors the war inside. But individuation, true self-rehabilitation, begins when you stop blaming fate and start asking, what part of me am I avoiding? Why do I keep repeating this pattern? Why do I choose emotionally unavailable people? Why do I sabotage progress when things go well? The shadow answers those questions. But you must be brave enough to listen. For empaths, this is especially difficult. Because you were rewarded for being good, for being understanding, for being the emotional sponge. But Jung would say, your kindness without boundaries is unconscious weakness. And unconscious weakness attracts conscious dominance. Integration means this. You can be compassionate and still walk away. You can feel deeply and still say no. You can love without losing yourself. When you integrate your shadow, You become grounded, calm, unshakable, not because you are perfect, but because you are whole. The goal is not to destroy the shadow. It is to sit with it, study it, accept it, and consciously choose how to use its energy. That's power. That's maturity. That's individuation. And most people will never do it. Because it's easier to call yourself unlucky. It's easier to blame narcissists. It's easier to say, this is just how I am. But Jung spent his life proving something else. You are not fixed. You are fragmented. And fragmentation can be healed. But only through awareness. So the next time you feel triggered, pause. Instead of asking, why are they like that? Ask, what part of me is reacting? That question alone can change your life. Because the shadow loses power the moment it is seen. And once seen, it can be integrated. And once integrated, you stop living unconsciously. You stop calling patterns fate. You stop confusing trauma with personality. You stop confusing attachment with love. You stop confusing sensitivity with weakness. Carl Jung was not teaching self-help. He was teaching psychological truth. And that truth is uncomfortable. You are both light and dark. The villain and the hero. The wound and the healer. The empath and the aggressor. The mask and the shadow. And when you bring them together, you become something rare. A conscious human being. Not perfect, not pure, but whole. And wholeness is power. Heal, awaken, integrate. The shadow is waiting.